Good morning. We are live on the Falcons Podcast. I am Scott Kennedy, your host, and today I've got a special guest. We are simulcasting to Smitty's Sport Machine on YouTube as well, and this is Smitty over here on this side, Antwon Smitty Smith. Antwon, I appreciate you joining me this morning and looking forward to having a good conversation with you today.
No doubt, Scott, man. I've been watching you for a while, man. Always great conversation, man, in the morning to get your day started, and I definitely appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, we're starting a little bit later today, but it was worth it to acquiesce to make sure that we could get Smitty in. So those of you who are still with us today, that we started at 9 or at 11. We usually start at 9 a.m. on Mondays and 9 a.m. on Wednesdays. That's every week on YouTube on my channel. And then you can catch Smitty at night. And I think we'll probably do a little crossover here in the next few days, next few weeks.
No doubt.
Where I come over and come over to Smitty. So Smitty, we're on your channel. We're on a couple of my channels. Tell us, a little bit about yourself. How long have you been a Falcons fan?
I actually been a Falcon fan since 1989, the Deion Sanders inception, and the way he changed the atmosphere in the city, it was pretty amazing. I knew then I had to be a Falcon fan, stand through them through thick and thin. And right before he got here, had to be the worst stretch in Atlanta Falcons history. But that's behind us, is on to now and the future, and that's pretty much how I became a fan. But because my stepfather and my granddaddy, they just baptized me in it. To be honest,
I gotcha. So I moved here. I wasn't born in Georgia, but I was moved down here when I was 5 with all of the other people fleeing the Midwest from Ohio, Michigan, Wisconsin, etc. And so 1980. Lehman Bennett, that was a pretty good team, 12-4.
Oh, yeah.
And they got knocked out of the playoffs by blowing a fourth quarter lead to the Dallas Cowboys. Now, at 5 years old, I didn't know that was going to be the rest of my life, the rest of my future. But I survived the 80s. As you said, that was the only winning season they had in the 80s.
Right.
And then I was 15 years old in 1988 when they had the number 1 overall pick and drafted Andre Bruce. And that was when I really started getting into the draft. I'm like, okay, let me check this out. Andre Bruce didn't necessarily live up to expectations, but he had a decent – he was in the league for over a decade. He wasn't a complete bust. And then the next year, like you said, was epic. That 1989 draft really helped shape my life, honestly, because I'm such a big fan of the NFL draft. And you had number 1, Troy Aikman, number 2, Tony Mandarich, number 3, Barry Sanders, number 4, Derek Thomas, number 5, Deion Sanders.
Yeah,
I was 16. That left an impression. And Deion Sanders left a big impression on this state and this franchise as well, including Smitty.
No doubt. In 1989 had to be probably one of the best drafts that no one talks about because there were so many superstars in that draft. It's not funny, and they lasted.
You
in the league
you hit
for
4
a
Hall
long
of
time.
Famers right off the bat, right there. I mean, all timers. And it was. Growing up, I told you how old I was in 1980. So that was also Herschel Walker.
Right.
So Herschel Walker through Bo Jackson. I'm like 5 years old through 11 years old. I just think this is what running backs look like.
Right.
So the first time I really paid close attention to the draft, I'm like, oh yeah, this draft stuff's pretty fun. Yeah, there's not many drafts like that 1989 draft. So now that the chat's opening up and people are starting to come in, I want to say good morning to some folks. Michael Ranquillo, he's over in Tucson, Arizona. He was in early at our normal time. And so is Alan. He's saying good morning. And Mark Schrader comes in from Texas. He says good morning. Good morning, Mark, over on Facebook. Jamal coming in says rise up. Good morning, Scott, Smitty, and everyone else. To you as well. And then 95 North Falcons Talk Show says, yes, sir. What a duo. Have a great show.
That's my co-host.
I had a feeling you look familiar. I recognize some of the graphics too. So appreciate you being here and helping us support the show. And Justin Farmer coming in over on Smitty's Sport Machine as well says, what's good, guys? You're good. So a couple of topics I want to get into real quick. I think the biggest question, going into this season, as you look up and down the roster, as the Falcons finally had some money to play with, 3 straight top 10 picks. They've spent a ton of money on the defensive side of the ball, and they've invested in their own guys on the offensive line and drafted a lot of skilled players. The biggest question for me, and I think pretty much for everybody going in, is Desmond Ridder. What would you say your outlook is for Desmond Ridder leading this team going into the 2023 season?
To be honest, my expectation of Desmond Ridder, I'm not going to put too much on his shoulders, but I also have to look at it as they've put weapons around him for him to be successful. And as I've said before, it's really between Desmond Ridder and Arthur Smith. Can they communicate? Can they find the right play selection at the right time? And can he come through in the clutch? So if he can do those 2 to 3 things, I think Desmond Ridder will be very successful. He's actually he's better than what they had last year with Mariota as far as a pocket fat passer. He can also use his legs like Mariota. He has 4.4 speed, and timing, rhythm, all that good stuff. So if he can do that, I think Desmond Ridder will be fine.
I think he's a very underrated athlete because he's such a good thrower. People don't realize he was the fastest quarterback at the combine last year.
Right.
And I think he ripped off a 4.53 officially at the combine, which I'm sure puts him in the 4.4s at some point. He's a very underrated athlete. And as you mentioned, the players that they've been able to build around him. I put out a tweet this morning. So Bill Barnwell on ESPN Plus, I don't know if you saw it on ESPN Plus, he ranked basically the offensive skill weapons besides quarterback. He's like, okay, if everybody's got an average quarterback and an average offensive line, who's got the best offense? Basically, who are your skill players? I don't know if you saw it, but where do you think the Falcons were ranked based on Kyle Pitts, Drake London, Bijan Robinson, Tyler Algier, et cetera, in the NFL?
Where would I rank them?
Yeah, where do you think Barnwell ranked them? Not where you rank them, because that would take everybody. But at ESPN, national analyst, we know the Falcons get overlooked for everything, even when they're doing, the team probably deserves it, but every once in a while, the individuals need more praise. Where do you think Barnwell ranked the Falcons' weapons in the NFL?
To be honest, I haven't seen it, but I would have to say top 5.
Really?
Yeah.
It was 10. It was 10, and I was actually pretty surprised by 10. I thought that was higher. I start as they go down. I start, okay, here's 31. Here's the Texans. Here's these teams. I'm like, how long is it going to take? And I kept scrolling because he wrote almost 500 words on everybody. I'm like, how long is this going to take? And I got to 10. I'm like, that's pretty good considering.
That's pretty good. Yeah.
Kyle Pitts had an off year last year. Rookie, you got, a second year guy in Drake London. You got a rookie in Bijan Robinson and a really good Tyler Algier. And what's interesting, Smitty, he wrote 500 words on the Falcons' offensive weapons and didn't mention Cordero Patterson.
Wow. Wow. And not only Cordero, I would throw Jonnu Smith in there as well, because you have a guy who's a red zone threat. He's athletic, just like Kyle Pitts. He's a little bit shorter, but he's kind of freakish himself. So they have 2 athletes at tight end as well. And both of them can line up anywhere on the field as well. So when you talk about weapons, the Falcons have to be top 5, man. Top 5.
I'd like to see where they finish. I think top 10 is pretty good, all things considered. But I wrote it up this morning on allfalcons.com saying it's like the media has finally gotten over the fact that the Falcons weren't going to mortgage their future and kill their salary cap numbers to try and go after Lamar Jackson, who wasn't available anyway.
Right.
Wait, let's look at this team that the Falcons have built. And I labeled it, I actually did an A/B test because I don't normally throw out shock headlines and stuff on Twitter and Facebook, but I called it No Excuses for Desmond Ridder. Because as you said, they have done a great job of building an offense around a quarterback where he doesn't have to be the second coming of Steve Young or John Elway even Randall Cunningham, a guy who can run and throw and all these things. He just has to be average. He just has to not be bad, and this team can be a playoff type of offense. You think of the skill weapons. Now let's look at the offensive line. The offensive line is arguably the best in football, Smitty. I can make that argument. Yep. I might not win it, but I could make that argument. No excuses for Desmond Ridder. They have gone all in building around the quarterback. So I agree with you. So my expectations for Ridder is just to be competent. Just be competent. And I think he can do that. Anything more than that, don't turn the ball over. Don't put your team in bad situations. Get the ball to your playmakers, of which there are plenty of them. So Smitty, the chat's opened up a little bit since we've spent a little time, and YouTube and Facebook are working their magic out to everybody. So I want to say hello to some more folks that have come in. Andreas coming in. Mr. Thompson says, happy birthday to Michael Vick. Yeah, Michael Vick turned 43 today. And I remember that 43 number because I said he could probably still run a 4.3. So
yeah, he's still fast. Still fast.
Kevin Fitzpatrick says, good morning, guys. Good morning. Good morning to you, Kevin, coming on Facebook. Antonio said, YouTube didn't send out the notification. Follow us on Twitter. I'm at Scout Kennedy, and you probably already follow Antwon, Mr. Smitty over here. So follow us on Twitter and retweet, send it out, and more people will get it. That's a big way you can help us.
No doubt.
Help us get around. Justin says, I think the Falcons will show up offensively this season. Even some people think we don't have depth at receiver. You have 2 running backs that can line up in the slot and do really well. So again,
great point.
As Justin comes in, Smitty, is the receiver depth a concern for you?
No, and Justin just said why. I have faith in Cordero Patterson. I have faith in Bijan Robinson. And as I said earlier, Jonathan Smith and Kyle Pitts is probably the reason why they didn't go after a number 2 wide receiver. You have Mac Hollins and Scotty Miller, who are veterans that can get it done. And I tell everybody, the wide receiver is one of the most replenishable positions in football, period. You can have a guy come off the street, get 1,000-yard receiving, as long as they're consistent, as long as they, know how to, as long as they're good and run out to the catch. So,
and your quarterback helps. Matt Ryan made a lot of receivers a lot of money. Say Matt Ryan made a lot of receivers a lot of money. Ask Mohamed Sanu. Ask Russell Gage.
Right.
Those are guys that,
that's my
what
point.
Receivers left Atlanta and ended up having better seasons while, after playing for Matt Ryan. But I think of it like this. Let's say you're in a 4-wide situation, you're 3rd and 8, Smitty, and I can go out there and put the Twin Towers outside in Drake London and Kyle Pitts. I can drop Bijan Robinson and Cordero Patterson in the slot, and then I got Tyler Robinson behind, or Tyler Algier behind me.
Right.
I feel pretty good about that. Now we need to stay healthy. That's a big one in there. The health can be a concern. But on that note, because you've got more playmakers, I shouldn't have to run Cordero Patterson into the line of scrimmage 20 times a game.
Agreed.
I shouldn't have to force the ball into traffic into Kyle Pitts 15 times a game to get 7 catches for 60 yards. I think, Smitty, this offense should open up a little bit more.
Yeah, it definitely has to open up. And you made a great point when you talk about what they have in Robinson and Patterson. I think all Arthur Smith has to do is learn how to blend in RPO and play action, no huddle, all that. If he can get timing down, any defensive coordinator that's trying the game plan for this offense is going to have a nightmare because there's so many weapons.
I agree. Again, it's like, okay, the depth at wide receiver isn't great. Okay, well, Kyle Pitts lines up at wide receiver a lot, and Drake London looks pretty good. Okay, what can Scotty Miller and Mac Hollins do? They should be options 5 and 6 in this offense. Okay, that's not bad. That's not bad. Jason Heller comes in. He says, morning, Scott and Smitty. Do you think Bijan Robinson will have an opening first year like Adrian Peterson or Todd Gurley?
Ooh, that's a great question. Man, that's a great question. I would have to say no. And the reason why is because I think Algier and Robinson will split carries. I think Robinson will be, more useful in the pass game. And I think he will have probably about 800 yards rushing, about 500 receiving. So 1,300 yards is not bad for a rookie.
Yeah, I'm looking up. My answer was no on this also, just because of 2007 doesn't sound like a long time ago. Well, at least to me it doesn't. But that was 15 years ago, 16 years ago. And the way running backs have been used has changed, where you don't really have a guy that's going to get 30 carries a game. And to be fair, Adrian Peterson only had 240 carries in his rookie season for 1,350 yards, and he added 268 yards. So going back to those numbers, Smitty, you're talking 1,600 yards of offense as a rookie. Then he put up 1,700 the next year rushing.
That dude,
So
he was a different type animal.
you're not that far off if you throw in, 800 and 500. You're at 1,300 yards. You're not that far off. 240 carries would have been top 3 in the league last year, I think. Behind Derrick Henry, probably led the league at close to 300,
I think he had
260.
340, I think.
Yeah, but anything over, usually there aren't too many running backs lately that get more than 250 carries. That said, maybe just because, like we said, he'll be such a weapon on offense. If I go yards from scrimmage, I don't expect 1,200 yards rushing because I don't want him carrying him the ball that much.
Right.
But think of Alvin Kamara with the New Orleans Saints. He had 4 straight years where he had 80 catches. So Bijan Robinson is going to get some looks in different areas. So maybe. My initial reaction was no, just because of the way the running back position has changed over the course of the last 15 years, decade plus. But maybe, 1,500 yards from scrimmage. To be fair, Smitty, when you put up that question on Twitter, I answered 3,000 yards from scrimmage from Algier and Bijan is a worthy goal. Now, that's 1,500 each. That's going to be close.
And one advantage,
we'll see. That'd be a lot. That'd be a lot.
One advantage that Bijan Robinson has, he has a Tyler Algier in the backfield along him to wear the defense down. So that can make him more of a home run hitter in the third and fourth quarter. So it's not that far off with the numbers, but 3,000 yards for both of them combined, I think that's a recipe for playoffs. Because in the playoffs, you have to be able to run the football late in the season. And I think that's something that they're going to be able to do well.
Now, Todd Gurley, on the other hand, 229 catches for 1,100 yards and 10 touchdowns. Carries, I think I said catches. And then receptions, he had 188 yards. So he had roughly 1,300 yards and 10 touchdowns his rookie season.
Right.
Yes. The answer on that one is yes. Bijan Robinson can have that type of production his rookie season. And frankly, Smitty, and we can transition to the next topic I wanted to get to. If Bijan Robinson isn't close to those numbers, I will consider it a disappointment based on the resources that the Atlanta Falcons used to get him, which was a number 8 overall pick. Want to come back to that here after we say hello to some more folks in the chat here real quick. Ryan Adonis, he says, Ridder as an offensive line and playmakers, the defense should be 100 times better. Ridder just needs to be a guy who can hit some passes and spread out the defense. Game manager. It's a bad word when you're talking about quarterbacks as prospects, but frankly, Ryan, Smitty, he just needs to manage the game. He really
bring up a name. He just has to be Chris Chandler. That's all. Just make the right throws at the right time. If y'all remember that NFC Championship game where the Atlanta Falcons came back against the Vikings, Chris Chandler just made the right throws at the right time during that second half. So the defense played well, and he did what he was supposed to do. That's all Desmond Ridder has to do. He has to make the right throws at the right time and become a great game manager.
Yeah, it was a little bit different of an era with, again, that was almost 25 years ago. 1998. It doesn't feel that long ago, Smitty. But he was Chris Chandler was 13-1 as a starter. He had 30 in 14 games. So there's a difference there. He had 3,150 yards, 25 touchdowns against 12 interceptions. Now, quarterbacks just don't throw as many turnovers, as many interceptions as they used to. That's just flat out changed. If you look back and look at some of the greats in the 80s, you're like, he threw 15 interceptions a year? My God, he'd be benched now. It was just a different game. The passing rules have changed. Yeah. If you get the way Chris Chandler played for the Falcons, if they get that from Desmond Ridder, we're going to be happy. We're going to be really happy. I promise you that. Desmond Ridder did really well. And as you said, the defense, just through personnel alone, should be a lot better. Smitty, I make the joke all the time. The Falcons had some money. They didn't have to shop off the waiver wire the Tennessee Titans and Chicago Bears like they've had to do the last 2 years. They've gone out and gotten some legitimate pros. So appreciate you, Ryan. Cortez coming in over on Smitty's Sports Machine. He says, good morning, Scott and Smitty, and everybody in the chat. Good morning to you as well. Roderick Cook comes in. He says, afternoon all. Roderick's in the UK, so it's almost evening for Mr. Cook. says Ridder just needs support, not knocking down. Then we can see how good he can be. Exactly. Exactly. And Danny Sullivan comes in a little bit long-winded and said, why not Ridder? He was 44-6 at Cincinnati. Yep. Stats are maybe the least useful tool in football compared to any other sport when you're trying to judge prospects, because so much of it is team-based.
Yeah.
What's your system? Who are you playing against? What's your competition? All that type of thing. But 44-6 at Cincinnati that's still a good stat. And he had good numbers there. We'll see how that translates. Winston coming over on the Sports Machine. He says, what's going on, fellas? Appreciate you being here.
That's my buddy Winston. Yeah.
And Carrie coming in on the Sports Machine as well. She says, good morning, guys. Excited to watch this show today in this collab. Well, Carrie, we're glad you're here. Appreciate you being here. And we'll drop a link to both YouTube channels in the chat. It's also in the description. Subscribe to both. Helps us both out for sure. And John says he's coming over on Facebook. He says, I honestly think Pitts will play wide receiver sometimes. That's not going out on a limb, John.
I agree with that.
He plays wide receivers a lot. That's already happened. He plays more times in the slot and out wide than he does with his hand down as an inline tight end.
Right.
And Smitty, when it comes time to get paid, he's going to be talking wide receiver numbers, not tight end numbers.
I agree with that. Definitely agree with that.
So going back to and Carrie already did it. I see him. She's way ahead of me. She says, I just subscribed to Scott's channel. We'll appreciate that.
That's one of my biggest supporters right there.
Yep, that's it's one of the reasons we do this. It's there's not competition among collaborators. We're all kind of in this together. We're all in this together. I want him to win. He wants me to win. And it's much different than it was at the start of the .com eras, which, yes, I'm old enough to be a part of.
Man.
Now, I have a question for you. When we were talking about the numbers that Bijan Robinson could put up, could he have a season like Todd Gurley or Adrian Peterson? My gut reaction was no until I looked up the numbers, and it was 1,500 yards for Peterson. It was 1,300 yards from scrimmage for Gurley. And now I'm like, yeah. And frankly, if he doesn't come close to those numbers, I will consider it a disappointment. I'll get into that after I hear your opinion on this, which is when the Falcons name came up, they were on the clock, like it says right here above us. When they were on the clock, what did you want to do at number 8? And what was your reaction when you heard Bijan Robinson's name called?
Well, Scott, I'm going to be honest with you. And anybody that
I expect nothing less.
I had a feeling it was going to be Bijan Robinson about a month before the draft took place. And the reason why, they fill every position on the team except running back. They haven't had a dynamic running back probably since Michael Turner, and that's been a decade ago. So at a position that can be so versatile on the field, and it's probably the only thing that they were missing last year. That's no knock to Tyler Algier. I'm talking about a home run hitter with home run hitter speed, guys that can make plays in the open field at running back, Christian McCaffrey or a Deebo Samuel type player. I think Bijan Robinson was that guy. They feel we needed defensive end. They got that in free agency and through the draft. So running back was really the only position that they needed to upgrade. So when they picked him at number 8, I just had a feeling that it was the right move at the right time.
Okay. What if it wasn't Bijan, who were you looking for? Who are you thinking that you wanted in that spot?
To be honest, he was already gone, and that was to the Las Vegas Raiders, and that was Tyree Wilson.
The edges were gone, unfortunately. Right. I've wanted an edge for 3 years, and they just said, it's like, I don't know if you need to reach for Lucas Van Ness at that point. The worst thing you can do is reach. If you're reaching for need, that's the worst thing you can do in that position. That said, I was a little disappointed in Bijan, just the general manager in me, because you give up the advantages of a high draft pick are basically financial.
Right.
That, and I'm always thinking for 10 years, not 5. Now, we mentioned Todd Gurley, okay? This is a cautionary tale for the running back. Todd Gurley had 5,000 yards and 40, 50. I can't even add that high. It's like 50 touchdowns in his first 5 years. Played for Atlanta in his 6th year, and then he was out of the NFL. Then he was gone. Then he was out of the NFL. That's not uncommon for running backs. It's just not. So also, you're also talking about cost control. The Falcons have the cheapest receiver room in the NFL, period, because you've got Kyle Pitts on a rookie deal and you've got Drake London on a rookie deal.
Right.
And then you've got some cast-offs, some journeyman types. You don't have a $20 million wide receiver. The running back position is only making, with an exception, and the market has reset, $12 million is high these days. 10 is super high right now. And when you're drafting a guy number 8, his average contract is about $8 to $9 million. So you've lost the financial benefit of drafting a running back. And then you have the worry of, I don't want to give a running back a second contract, more than likely. So it's a short-term philosophy for me. That said, there was a question in here. Let me see who had it, but I'll just repeat it if I can't find who asked it. I apologize. Here it was. It was from Antonio. If the Falcons don't make the playoffs, will Arthur Smith get another year? Depends.
Ooh,
I think they could go 9-8 and miss the playoffs, and he'd get another year. But Bijan Robinson was arguably the best player in the draft. He was a win-now move. Kyle Pitts was not a win-now move. That drove me nuts when I heard people saying that. Oh, Kyle Pitts, they're going for it. No, they're not. They got no offensive line, no defense.
That was a replace Julio Jones move.
Thank you. That was a Julio Jones replacement. But Bijan Robinson is win now. This is, we want to win now. Because I may only get 4 or 5 years from my running back position. I know they spread the ball around. They try and extend the life, but still, Dalvin Cook was just cut. Yeah, I could go on and on and on. Ezekiel Elliott, how did his second contract work out? You probably don't want the guy more than 5 years. It's at least not on what it would cost to keep him. So, Smitty, I wanted Jalen Carter at that spot, not knowing the full risks of his background, but I could easily make the argument of why Bijan Robinson was a good pick for this team at this time, considering all of the other players. And if he doesn't come in close to that 1,300 to 1,500 yards that we talked about, that we were talking about earlier, I'm going to consider it a disappointment, because you don't draft a running back at number 8 for the future. You're not developing him. He's drafted for now.
And again, this goes back to play calling. And I've been talking about this for the last 4 months. Arthur Smith play calling is going to be key to Bijan Robinson's success, Desmond Ridder, Kyle Pitts, Drake London. So if he does not put them in a position to win with his play calling, yes, I feel like his job will be in jeopardy. And I also feel like they have a coach in waiting in Jerry Gray or Ryan Nielsen. So the pressure is on. And I think Arthur Smith is his to win or lose.
So are you in the camp, if he doesn't make the playoffs, that he's going to be gone after year 3?
I would actually give him one more year because this is actually his first year of being able to put his type team on the field. And Terry Fontenot, if y'all haven't noticed, this team looks a lot like those Saints teams on offense. Good number 1 receiver, versatile tight end, versatile running back, and an offensive line that can run block. So, I think he would get one more year. One more at least.
I agree. Unless the wheels fall off, there's internals, and again, I look at the schedule, I look at this team after back-to-back 7 and 10 seasons where they were putting out a defense with duct tape and cardboard, and Grady Jarrett and AJ Terrell.
Yeah.
That this team, the offensive line, the playmakers we talked about, I just cannot see this team being worse than they were. And then you look at the schedule. The schedule's is easy, on paper. We never know how it's going to be, but on schedule, you're matched up with the AFC South and the NFC South twice. So that's 6 games, that's 10 games against, on paper, the 2 worst divisions in football. All right, even if you split your divisional games, there's no reason why you shouldn't be able to go 3-1 to AFC South. You're talking, what's that, 6 wins already? 6-4? Okay.
Yep.
I got 7 more games to win 4 more. In the schedule, you got the Arizona Cardinals are one of your – they're tanking for Caleb. I mean, they may go winless this year. They are underdogs in every single one of their games. So
that's crazy.
I just the schedule, the talent, the team, the buy-in, the culture, their overachieving nature over the last 2 years. This team plays hard.
Yeah.
I think that this team is the expectations have come up, but like you said, Smitty, this is really their first year. This is their first year with any expectations.
Yeah.
I think 8-9, 9-8, and missing the playoffs. I think you get one more year, and then year 4, you better make it. And I don't think it'll be Terry Fontenot. I think it'll be Arthur Smith. I think Terry would be safe.
Oh yeah, no doubt, because he's put all the right pieces on this team for them to succeed. And actually, if you think about the GM that they've had in the past, other than Thomas Dimitroff, this right here was a home run hit with Terry Fontenot. So that alone makes him safe, even with Rich McKay.
I agree. And you look at the draft and some of the value you've gotten in the lower rounds so far. What we say is you can't miss. There's a phrase in scouting. It says it's not the players that you miss that kill you, and I mean miss out on. It's the players you get that can't play that kill you. So the second Jamal Anderson. Remember that draft pick? That was Parade Jerry. It's not that you didn't get somebody good, that Cam Jordan went to the New Orleans Saints.
Right.
It's that you got Parade Jerry and he stunk. So you've got your top 3 picks.
Perfect example of what you're saying. Tat McKinley back in 2017 when TJ Watt was still on the board. That was one of the biggest misses in franchise history. That is the biggest by far.
There's too many you could play that game with. I try not to scout in hindsight. So I'm not going to say, well, look at who we could have had. Yeah, but who would you have taken at the time? So for me, number 4, I would have taken Justin Fields. I would have gotten my quarterback for the cost control reasons, for the Matt Ryan contract, that the quarterback is expensive to try and get. Now, if you hit on one in the 3rd, my goodness, you're playing with house money. You can spend money all around him. And if that happens, great. But I would have taken Justin Fields at number 4. The year after, because your offensive line was still kind of a mess, you still didn't have a quarterback situation. I would not have gone receiver. I would have gone Kyle Hamilton at the time, because I thought instead of Drake London, I thought he was the best player available from Atlanta, face of the franchise, and I would have gone Jalen Carter last year. That said, Kyle Pitts can play. Drake London can play. Bijan Robinson looks like a guy who can play. So Fontenot has hit on all 3 of those, pending Robinson. But then let's look a little bit down the draft. Yeah, there's a miss in there with Jalen Mayfield. Okay. But Tyler Algier in the 5th, and one of my favorite sleeper picks out of this, Smitty, is Taquan Graham in the 5th.
Very underrated. Draft. Very underrated.
I think he was the most underrated and most improved player both last year.
Right.
And that he's being listed as a backup now tells you the depth of this defense that they'll be able to put out there.
Right. And a lot of people don't know it. He was one of the highest graded run defenders in the NFL last year before he got hurt. Everybody thinks about that fumble he had against the Chargers, but trust me, he was in the backfield on almost every play when it came to running the football. He collapses the pocket well. Right. He collapses the pocket well. He knows how to control his gaps. And I think this season playing behind a guy like Calais Campbell could take him to that next level. So that's one person that I'm very interested to see how they work with this new look defense, and one that can make everybody better, not just him. Everybody on the defense, they will fight for each other, and that's the type mentality that Arthur Smith, Ryan Nielsen, Jerry Gray, that's what they're bringing to Atlanta.
Yeah, and Taekwon is back out there full go right now at OTAs and minicamp, which I love. Now, it's not contact yet, so we'll see. But Taekwon Graham for me was a revelation. Him, I think I predicted like 2-15 last year, Smitty. 3-14. I just looked at the schedule. I looked at both lines of scrimmage. I'm like, this team is in trouble. Well, Taekwon Graham and Caleb McGarry were the two most improved players on the team.
Agreed.
Those were the two lines of scrimmages. That was the big difference for me is you got better immediately, much better. Caleb McGarry played at a Pro Bowl level, and Taekwon Graham was playing at a plus starter level where he was a liability the year before. The line of scrimmage immediately got better. Team got better. Funny how that works. John comes in over on your channel on Smitty Sports Machine. He says, I'm wondering why the bar is being set so low for Desmond Ridder. Smitty, I'll let you take a shot at this one first.
I don't think the bar has been set low. I just think the expectation should be a little bit higher than what they were last year out of those 4 games that he played. And the reason why I say that, and I've said it already, is the weapons that he has. So they have no reason to set the bar low. When you have weapons at every position on offense and have a strong offensive line, you have to set the bar up because those expectations go up when you build a better team. Now, if they didn't have those same players last year, I would say, yeah, you got to set the bar low. But when they have everything in place, you got to raise the bar a lot because that's just what you're supposed to do.
So, John, I read this differently the first time. So after Smitty says, let me get on that because I may have set the bar low. My expectations are a little lower for him. Just be competent. And part of that's because he's first year as a starter. This is the first time I have lower expectations for any rookie quarterback. I don't care who it is. Trevor Lawrence is as good a prospect as I've seen coming out of the NFL in 10 years at quarterback. I had very low expectations for him as a rookie, playing on a bad team, and it's just the speed of the game. Now, Ridder's not a rookie, but it'll still be really his first year of starting. So my expectations are marginal, which is still eons better than, he's the 40th quarterback out of 40 in the NFL. That would mean I would have outsized expectations. But part of this, why is the national perception on him so low? Part of it is bias from his draft grade coming out. He got drafted in the 3rd round. Well, how can a 3rd-round quarterback be a franchise quarterback? It doesn't happen very often, and statistics say they don't, but it does sometimes. And maybe he can be the exception to this rule because I was pretty shocked he fell that low, Smitty. When I went to the Senior Bowl, I was like, I like him better than Kenny Pickett. Kenny Pickett went to first. Yeah. And when we were doing mocks, I took Ridder a lot with that 1st, 2nd-round pick that the Falcons had last year. So that they got him in the 3rd was a bargain. And I think, am I setting the bar low? Maybe. Compared to national media, no. But my expectations for a first-year starter are marginal. They just are.
And would you, based on last year in those 4 games, would you, and this is my opinion really, and I'm just asking you, those 4 games to me were like preseason games for him. And it was something to motivate him, get his feet wet coming into this year. Now, preseason's coming up again, training camp and all that stuff. What do you think those 4 games meant Desmond Ridder?
I think anytime you're out there in an NFL regular season, it's daunting. That he went out there and threw for 60 yards on 25, and then against the Saints, then immediately rebounded against teams that either didn't have anything to play for or were the Bucs. They pull Brady halfway through. So preseason, it almost was a preseason atmosphere of sorts for him, let alone that the Falcons weren't playing for anything. So the pressure was up, but how much pressure is going to be on a first-time quarterback walking out there, period. Right. And I thought his quarterback rating got better week to week to week to week. I love that. I love seeing that. No turnovers. I love seeing that. So, does 2 touchdowns in 4 games. If he finishes next year with a touchdown in every other game with 8 touchdowns, there's going to be problems.
Oh, yeah, no doubt.
That will get better. You've got more weapons around you. Do that without Kyle Pitts. Now you got Bijan Robinson in there. You can be more strategic with how you use Cordero Patterson. That's not going to. He's not going to. If he has 8 touchdowns, he's not going to last. Taylor Heineke will be the quarterback. So,
No doubt.
but last year I was pleased with what I saw, but my expectations are still in check because he wasn't setting the world on fire. He was competent. Falcons just need competence the way this team is set up.
Right.
And Joey, sorry about that. Jamal Double Anderson was terrible. So we would have gotten more production out of a AA battery. Yeah, at least would have helped keep the lights on or whatnot. And sorry to bring up bad memories on that one, Joey. But yeah, it's not the guys. And this was Floyd Donnelly says Jamal Anderson broke both his knees. That's a different Jamal Anderson. That's fat.
You're talking about the running back
from
right.
98.
We talking about
the Jamal
defensive
Anderson I was talking
end.
about was a first-round pick out of Arkansas. The second
Right.
Jamal Anderson. The first one is first in our hearts. Jamal rushed for about 440 carries that year and burned himself out in 98.
That was an NFL
Luckily, he
record
got
at the
paid.
time. Right.
Yeah, luckily he did get paid for that. So let me see here. We're at 41 minutes, and I think I've only gone through 2 of the topics that I have set up for us. I had a feeling that might happen, Smitty. We're going to have to do this again. Who has been your favorite offseason addition? The Falcons added about 15 guys that are going to see significant time. Who's been your favorite offseason addition?
I'm going to go with a sleeper here, and I say Jeff Okudah. Getting him for a 5th-round pick, knowing that last year he had his best season in the NFL. So that's something to grow on because the first 2 seasons were marred with injury. But Jeff Okudah, man, next to A.J. Terrell, I think he's going to be one of the best young tandems in the NFL. And I think those 2 could also help the pass rush in the long term. And Jeff Okudah, man, not paying him much money, I think he was the biggest steal this offseason, to be honest.
That is a great shout. And frankly, there's enough good additions. I'm having trouble just picking out one, to be honest with you. Your co-host, he says Taylor Heineke was our best offseason acquisition. Thoughts? It shocks me how little respect Taylor Heineke has gotten. I read the same article. I don't know if it was Bill Barnwell, but it was somewhere on ESPN where they're praising the Indianapolis Colts for getting some insurance for their rookie quarterback, Anthony Richardson, by getting Gardner Minshew. And then 4 paragraphs down, they're saying the Falcons did nothing to make sure that Desmond Ridder had some insurance. I'm like, Taylor Heineke's a better quarterback than Gardner Minshew. What are you talking about?
Against us. Man.
I'm like,
they got something against the Falcons, I'm going to just tell you.
Well, the Falcons have stunk. I get that. I understand when you're talking team, but when you're breaking down individuals and you put Quentin Nelson ahead of Chris Lindstrom, that's insane right now. Chris Lindstrom.
He's actually passed Quentin Nelson easily.
Yeah, Quentin Nelson has been average the last 2 seasons. What's your sample size? You know, okay, well, the last 2 years, Chris Lindstrom has been significantly better than Quentin Nelson. So, you know, if you want to say, okay, the Falcons still weren't very good, okay, I get that, but that's not what this is about. So Taylor Heineke can run, local kid, and is a serviceable quarterback. What did we just say we're expecting out of Des Ridder in his first year? Competence for me, they got a competent backup. This quarterback room is a lot better this year than it was last year, Smitty.
Agreed. No doubt about it.
So
go ahead.
I'm going to give you one more. You took Okudah. Who's your second favorite acquisition? Because I'm probably going to have to name like 5 guys.
I'm going to stay in the secondary. I'm going to say Jesse Bates because the Falcons haven't had a safety that athletic in a long time. One that can track the ball well. He can play in the box, play single high. He's just versatile. He can play either free safety or strong safety. So I'm going to say those 2 in the secondary will probably make this team better, defense better as a whole because of what they bring.
I love those. Love those picks. Brennan agrees. He's like, Jesse Bates is easy. What are you talking about? Well, there's so many good ones. It's tough, and I'll tell you why. For on-the-field production, I might go Caden Ellis right now.
That's a good one.
If he's got a chance, if he can knock on the door of double-digit sacks, he's going to make his presence felt in a hurry. What do the Falcons still need on offense? They still need a dominant pass rusher. Now, Ryan Nielsen has brought in some guys that can get after the passer. And it could end up being, you know, you've heard the phrase running back by committee. Well, this could be rushing the passer by committee. There might not be anybody that gets 10, but there could be 6 guys that get between 5 and 9. All right, well, when you only have 35 sacks in the last 2 seasons combined,
Right.
35 sacks would be nice. And that wouldn't even be average. I think 40 is average. They haven't had 40 in 2 years combined, Smitty. It's insane. So I like what Caden Ellis can do. Now, maybe my favorite addition, is Calais Campbell. Because to me, it's a statement of intent. Calais Campbell chose the Falcons.
Yeah.
He didn't get a above market. It wasn't his best offer, I would imagine. Jesse Bates probably got his best offer and like the comfort level with the Atlanta Falcons, and he got here. Calais Campbell could have had his choice to go play some snaps pretty much with any team he wanted to, and he chose the Falcons. The last time I can remember somebody coming to the Falcons because they wanted a chance to win and build was Tony Gonzalez.
Yep.
That was a complete and total mystery. What a new feeling for me, Smitty, when I want to leave the Chiefs because I want to go try and win a Super Bowl with the Falcons. That was a statement of intent. That gave a signal to, hey, this team is here. It's arrived. For me, Calais Campbell is a statement that the Falcons are for real. Watch out for the Atlanta Falcons. That's why it's one of my favorite additions, Smitty.
I agree with that. You talking about a guy that's 6'7", can play any spot on the defensive line and bring veteran leadership. That's a win all day.
Yeah, it just talking about what he brings to the field. Obviously, the guy's a monster. He's just. I saw a picture of him standing next to Jonnu Smith. I'm like, wait a minute, isn't one of those supposed to be a tight end? It looks like Shaq out there.
Right.
Yeah. So what he can bring to the defense, I love. But at his age, maybe he only plays 40% of the snaps. But what he is bringing to this team and the statement of intent of Calais Campbell, I really, really like. And then Jesse Bates. How do you go wrong there? You can get anything out of Bud Dupree. We'll see. And then we didn't mention the draft picks. Bijan Robinson should be a lot of people's favorites, new addition. But John agrees with me. Appreciate you coming in, John. He says Campbell, without a doubt, if he pans out right, he's going to be a motivating factor for that whole defense. And that's one of the things for me. And the thing is, we went all of this without even saying David Onyemata. Who needs more help than Grady Jarrett? If I've got a front 3 rotation now of 2, if we're going 2 defensive tackles, of Taquan Graham, David Onyemata, and Grady Jarrett, that's legit, Smitty. That's legit.
Yeah, and one thing about it, as I said on my show before, Grady Jarrett played better with Anthony Rush next to him, someone that can eat up space and collapse the pocket and get him room to roam. I think Calais Campbell and David Onyemata offer that to him as well. So look for Grady Jarrett to possibly have a 10-sack season.
One of those offseason additions that they pulled off a scrap heap to me that totally overachieved was Abdullah Anderson. I was shocked when he got waived from the first 90 when he didn't make the team initially, and I was thrilled when they brought him back. And then when they bring him back, I'm like, all this guy does is make plays.
Yep.
I was hoping they'd find a spot for him, but I'm happy that he played his way. Now, you mentioned Jeffrey Okudah and not having to pay him a lot. I would love if the Falcons ended up in a Caleb McGarry situation. All right, Jeffrey Okudah, you got him for nothing. You didn't pick up his 5th-year option, and he had a phenomenal season. You're going to have to pay him now. Okay. I'll take the phenomenal season. I'd rather have that. You're going to lose him if he has a good season. Well, I'll take my chances. I'll take the good season first. I'd much rather have that than having Fabian Moreau out there stinking the place up, and I don't want him anywhere near the team. I'll take my chances.
And Jeff Okudah, they have an advantage in that situation because if he comes out and have a great year and said, if Falcons took a chance on me, you possibly get him well below market value. And make him very affordable. Then you add him for another 3 years. You re-sign AJ Terrell to his long-term deal. And you got 2 of the best young corners in the league for a while.
Right. And let's not wrap up a ton of money. There will be some money coming off the books in 2 years from Jake Matthews. His contract is still, of all the bad contracts that Demetrius signed, Matthews is the only one that is still a problem. He's safe. It's going to be a problem this year, and it's going to be a problem next year. Now, I say a problem because he's being paid over market value by a good deal.
Well over
$28 million cap hit this year.
Yeah.
that's too much. But you get some flexibility, and you're able to get out. You tore the Band-Aid off with Matt Ryan's contract and took that giant cap hit last year. You moved on from Deion Jones, Julio. You did all those things. That there is going to be money available. Plus, the cap should go up a little bit. Joey has a question for us. He says, Scott and Smitty, what do you expect out of Arnold Ebiketie, AK-47, this year?
Well, I expect him to work on more pass rush moves. He was great at getting to the quarterback last year, just couldn't finish out. But like I said, with Calais Campbell and David Onyemata and those guys, I expect the outside linebackers, edge rushers to move a little bit more freely this year. And look for a lot of stunts because you saw it in New Orleans with Ryan Nielsen. So I expect pretty much the same in Atlanta. But numbers-wise, I expect him to get at least 8 sacks.
Wow, that would be a nice bump. My expectations for Arnold Ebiketie is to finish what he's started. He flashed, so more consistency. He flashed last year as a pass rusher, but I think he still only ended up with about 2 sacks. So just more consistency and finish some of those pressures. He was in the backfield.
Yeah.
A little bit more time on the back end could help because you've got Okudah, you've got Bates, you've got Mike Hughes, you've got AJ Terrell, a little bit more, and maybe having to worry about my other side could help too. He's got more help out there, which should take some of the pressure off everybody, which would free up more playmakers. The same thing on offense.
Yep.
The same thing on offense. So what do I expect out of him? 5 to 6 sacks would be nice, I think, in taking that next step forward. As a longtime Atlanta sports fan, man, I'm a cynic. I'm cynical as hell, Joey. So I usually under-predict on something like this. So if I'm gushing about something Atlanta, I'm pretty excited about it. I feel like I'm leading you into this. I'm leading the witness. But other than Desmond, I'm not even going to say, I'm just going to get this one out of the way. Other than Desmond Ridder at quarterback, because I think he's the biggest question going into the team, what's your biggest concern from this team?
Well, I'm going to stick to my guns, and I said it before on my channel. I would still have to say Arthur Smith play calling. If Arthur Smith play calling does not go like it's supposed to go and keep this offense in rhythm, key first downs, I think that would be probably the biggest question mark I have is the play calling. Okay,
and I think that's a legitimate concern because, again, they were just trying to survive the last 2 years. So they did a good job of that, of getting 14 wins out of that roster the last 2 years. I think was a minor miracle. But being a scrappy blue-collar guy and then taking the next step up with a better team is a bigger question. So I think that's legit. I still like to think, Smitty, that part of the play calling and stuff they did was personnel based. You know, what could they do? You're limited in some of your running game with your first year with Matt Ryan. You're limited in the passing game your second year with Marcus Mariota, and the lack of weapons. Now there's more weapons around him. I think we'll see more creativity out of Arthur Smith, more explosive plays, not just trying to grind out the clock and hold possessions down. I call it suffer ball. My biggest concern is still probably the pass rush. If I look out there, I don't see that guy I have to account for on every play, other than maybe Grady Jarrett still at this point. You've got some depth at edge, but you don't still have that guy. Can he become that guy? Maybe. But I still would like to see him be a Robin to someone else's Batman. Is Lorenzo Carter that guy? No, he's not. Bud Dupree that guy? Probably not anymore. D'Angelo Malone that guy? Not yet. But all 4 of those guys are considerably better than the Stephen Means of the world that they threw out years ago.
Man.
Got you on that one, huh? My watchers know, and I mean no offense to Stephen Means. I think playing in the NFL is a hell of an accomplishment, and it wasn't his fault that he had to be thrown out there. But he hit the quarterback 1 time in 2021 on 15 starts. That's one. You should get that off a blown snap, a missed coverage assignment. You know, you see guys come free at least once.
As I said, Scott, that's what happens when you shopping at the dollar store instead of Walmart. You get those kind of players because that's the kind of cap space you have. So when your cap space is not right, you're going to get those kind of players.
Like I said, they put that defense together with Grady Jarrett, AJ Terrell, duct tape. And then they were like, "Ooh, the Bears just waived somebody else. Maybe we can get let's get him on the phone. Nobody else wants him. We can get him for league minimum." Just painful. What has not been painful though has been everybody here today. What I want to do real quick, I'm going to drop this link in the chat. I know there's a lot of y'all watching on Smitty's channel already, but I'm putting Smitty's link in the chats. Please subscribe to his YouTube.
I appreciate that.
At Smitty Sports Machine on YouTube, and the link is now there. I think we're about to call it a day. We're at 56 minutes. I guess since I teased this, what are your expectations for this team? Give me a record prediction off the cuff.
My expectations is for them to be better than they were last year on both sides of the football. I expect Arthur Smith, like you said, to open up the offense, be more explosive with Bijan Robinson, Drake London, and Kyle Pitts and those guys. But defensively is where I think they will strive because those two defensive backs that I named, they will help the pass rush as well, not only the defensive line. So the only question that I do have is probably still the linebackers. But I think Caden Ellis, Troy Anderson, and Michael Walker, they can hold it down. So my expectation record-wise this year, and I'm going to stick to it, and I would say 11-6 because of the schedule that they have.
Okay, 11-6. I'm throwing my YouTube channel in the chat as well. So I know a lot of y'all, I've seen a lot of y'all say you subscribe to my channel, so I certainly appreciate that and looking forward to talking more with y'all as we move on. 11-6, I think, is fair. I've said somewhere between 8-9 and 11-6, so I'll go 10-7. And I honestly, Smitty, I feel like I'm erring on the side of caution with this one. I feel like 10 is conservative. I think that's a conservative number. This team should win 10. They should. Anything less than 10, I'll be a little disappointed. So I think if you look at the schedule, you look how the team has been built, you look at the playmakers, and Arthur Smith's ability to get the most out of what he's got, the veterans on defense. It's not like there's the one wild card is a big one. It's Desmond Ridder. But I feel like this is I'm going to go 10-7, but I think that's I honestly feel like that's conservative. On that note, I think we're going to get out of here, y'all. It's been about an hour. And just a reminder, because a lot of you guys are going to watch this after the fact, that I am live every Monday at 9 a.m. and Wednesday at 9 a.m. where we do the Falcons podcast. And then you can find us on Apple or wherever you get your podcasts at the Falcons podcast. Check out Smitty. At Smitty Sports Machine. I put his link in the chat. It would be a great favor to both of us if you subscribe to his channel as well. And I know there's a bunch of y'all watching on Facebook as well. Anything you can do to subscribe and drive up those numbers, even if you turn off notifications, it's a big help to us. So, Smitty, I want to say thank you for coming in today and doing this at 11. Problem. I've had a lot of fun. We'll have to do it again soon.
No doubt, man. I can't wait to have you on my show as well, man. I catch you when I can because in the morning sometimes I'm out. But when I do catch you, man, it's always a great show.
Well, I certainly appreciate it. Look forward to doing that and love your work. That's why you're here. So everybody, thank you so much for being here today. We had a bunch of viewers at 11 a.m. on a Monday morning. So the time slot wasn't great, and we know that, but y'all were. So we'll see you Wednesday morning. And check out Smitty's show also, but we'll see you Wednesday morning back here at 9 a.m. Until then, we'll see y'all later.